Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, October 16th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, guys, just to let you know that we try to be a family-friendly podcast, but sometimes words do fly. And at the same time, there are some things that just might be a little too graphic for younger viewers. So again, viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, let's go ahead and get into it. As far as the world itself, I have been saying this, guys, for the longest time, that when it comes to law enforcement, I know a lot of people get tired of me talking about this. They know my opinions on law enforcement. They know my opinion on when I sit there and say it's hard to believe that there are good cops out there, because the good cops are usually the ones being fired or let go. The bad cops are the ones being given promotions and sent to other cities and states where they're not known and still keeping their jobs. In this case, someone explained to me that when a cop is simply trying to do the right thing and blow the whistle on the cover-up, that again, the blue code of silence rears its ugly head.
From Chris Nakamoto.
We're learning tonight rank-and-file troopers push for their colleagues to be arrested after Ronald Green died in state police custody 2 years ago. Case notes leaked to us show what appears to be a cover-up from the very beginning. There's much more from the investigative unit and Chris Nakamoto this evening.
Sylvia, Michael, the notes show while those at the top tried to cover up Green's death, the sergeant investigating pushed for arrests to be made. Documents are painting a picture of that investigator being stonewalled by those in power.
You do more digging and you find more cases like that.
Louisiana State Trooper Carl Cavalier is risking everything to share his story.
I think it's criminal charges, damn it.
It's a risk that comes with unknown consequences.
May 26, 2020, Jared brought the thumb drive back with a copy of the case file.
And whether he'll still have a job tomorrow.
The department decides to part ways with me. I want to say I'm fine with that in a sense, because I love what I do. I love my career, but we still have murderers in my eyes on the job. We still have guys who's either been slapped on the wrist for their roles in this Ronald Green incident, or just went unpunished. They're still patrolling the streets and still left on the job.
Let me see your hands, mother. Come here, mother.
In his words, he's talking about some of his colleagues in the Troop F area.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
Who he believes played a part in the death of Ronald Green.
He said Baton Rouge FBI was taking over the case.
Cavalier feeling compelled to come forward after seeing the videos and hearing Ronald Green's mom speak.
Me seeing Miss Mona Harder, Ronald Green's mother, on TV, and just having a feeling of, what if that's my mother? What if Ronald Green was me?
Cavalier bringing the WBRZ investigative unit the notes of the trooper who investigated Ronald Green's death, Albert Paxton.
May 27, 2019.
The notes filed away with state police top brass. Albert Paxton is emerging as a trooper who wanted to do the right thing. He took extensive notes, appearing to be stonewalled.
The former Colonel Reeves, I would say he needs to go to jail. Anyone just a part of the cover-up. Anyone part of the cover-up, everyone on the scene that night who either failed to act or act inappropriately, for sure.
Our sources at State Police say Trooper Carl Cavalier's interview with us was unprecedented. Cavalier says he decided to speak out because there are a number of troopers that are about standing for the right thing, and they want the cover-ups to end. He feels like he's giving everyone a voice.
Some of Paxton's notes show 7 days after Green's death, Albert Paxton writes, "We felt we should arrest Hollingsworth." Hollingsworth seen on body camera footage beating Ronald Green. On May 27, 2019, at a golf tournament, Colonel Kevin Reeves is approached about this. The note shows someone tells Colonel Reeves our concerns and makes him aware of the case. Colonel Reeves says we can't arrest troopers for turning off cameras because it will set a precedent. 2 months later, Paxton notes that ranking state police brass want to argue the crash killed him. The district attorney in Lincoln and Union parishes, John Belton, meets with investigators on September 9, 2019. We show him the video and go over the entire case. Mr. Belton says the video was the worst thing he's ever seen.
Hollingsworth was able to go for a whole year without being punished or investigated because of his supervisors, because of the people around him, had the same mindset that he had.
I beat the ever-living out of him, choked him and everything else trying to get him under control.
And they were okay with what he did.
We requested an interview with state police about this story. We also asked if Paxton notes would be turned over to the Department of Justice and whether Cavalier would be disciplined for speaking out as a whistleblower. Those are all questions they have not answered.
And do we expect them to? No. Because how many times have we sat there and heard this with law enforcement? You know, cover-ups, policemen are protected, policemen who have went beyond to protect and serve, who have went beyond the fact of protecting the public, who went beyond the fact of their authority. And why are we surprised? Why are we surprised that that he's sitting there expecting termination? Why? Is he speaking up? Same way like those Capitol police officers for the January 6th Commission talked about how those white domestic terrorists were trying to basically pull a coup. And they were talking, and yet the fraternal police couldn't be found. The local, any police organization could not be found. Didn't even back them up. Their silence speaks volumes. I wasn't the first person to say it. Jake Tapper from CNN said it. The fact that there was no police union or rep to back up those officers then, just like so many officers, and you've seen them on social media across the board, have came out and spoke out against the fact that there is something corrupting within the nation's law enforcement. And every time one of those officers has spoke up, are they still officers after that? That's why I sit there and say the simple fact of the matter is, this officer says that he's expecting termination because he's going against the code. He's going against the code of silence because he's going against law enforcement's. He's going against the law enforcement complex. He's going against everything that they tried to cover up. We've seen it with Breonna Taylor. Definitely will never forget that. They covered that up from cop to district attorney. And at the same time, it is amazing to me, like in this case, again, the offending officer went a whole year without prosecution. Probably still is going on. But they're going to focus on said whistleblower. And people wonder, and yet, this is why law enforcement, as it stands, isn't trying to make peace with minorities. It's not. Because, if you look at Dave Chappelle and the Netflix closer, he explains it brilliantly. That he literally could sit there and, like I said, for most black people, it's almost assumed when a black person kills another black person, it's assumed that it's just par for the course. But let a black person kill anybody else other than a black person, national news. That's all it is. It's in the same sense of just like, well, we expect police to beat up on minorities because, and they go down the line. You've heard them all. Didn't comply, combative, confrontational, wouldn't listen to anybody, just sat there and decided that this was they asked for it. They're pretty much saying that they asked for it. And I think it's completely and utterly messed up to even think that. Even more so in this sense, that if officers are supposed to be held to a higher standard, why is it that whenever we point something on law enforcement, we ask for higher standards, we ask for training, we ask for education, we ask for so many things for you to be a law enforcement officer, like many other countries have done. Many other countries have made sure that their law enforcement is educated, definitely has been psych eval, has been trained in multiple areas of situational awareness, de-escalation tactics, noticing special behaviors, things of that nature. And yet in the USA, if you were in the academy for 6 to 8 months, you can be a police officer. You have to train longer to be a nail technician, to be a police officer in this country, and that tells you everything you want to know. Even more so, The argument of the fact that there are good cops, just a few bad apples, is ridiculous when you are literally pruning the bad apples and you're using the bad and you're pruning the good apples and you're taking the bad apples and you're basically just growing another tree. That's all you're freaking doing. But we will follow that story as it goes along, and I just wouldn't be surprised in his case if we don't hear from him anymore, because he's probably no longer going to be an officer, as he's already expecting. So, I didn't want to get into this story, guys, because our favorite two Democratic people, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, have sat there and said, because right now the Democrats are looking at a very big hole. Keep in mind when I sit there and said Pelosi did make a promise before Halloween that they would go ahead and put 2 votes on the bills. First and foremost, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and then the $3.5 bigger bill, social net bill, that was supposed to go out. And of course, the two people among the Democrats have an issue. Kyrsten Sinema sat there and said, quote unquote, that there has been a breach in trust, just because that she would be hesitant to endorse a final deal on the social net plan that until, which again, that's the $3.5 trillion plan that Democrats want to pass. She would not endorse it until the Senate first passes until the House passes the first Senate's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, keep in mind, I know it's a lot of numbers, but let me point this out. Democrats right now have 2 bills out there. The $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill has already been passed by the Senate. It has to be passed by the House in order to be put in Biden's desk. That being said, House progressives, which are the progressive Democrats, want $3.5 trillion spending bill also put in there, for reason being that it covers a lot of things that America needs right now: infrastructure, child care, expanding Medicaid to include dental, vision, and hearing, along with medical, and a treasure trove of other things that America surely needs right now. This is why I keep on pointing out that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, come midterms next year, are going to have a hard time remaining elected, because Kyrsten Sinema is not listening to her constituents, and Joe Manchin is secretly a Republican posing as a Democrat, because they both sat there and said that they cannot spend a $3.5 trillion package. I have been saying this since those two made their points known. First and foremost, moderate Democrats are just Republican light. Let me just call them what they are. And the simple fact of the matter is, it is amazing to me how much they are trying to simply say that $3.5 trillion is too much to spend. Keep in mind that $3.5 trillion over the next 10 to 15 years. It's not immediate. That being said, they use this as a tool to sit there and say, well, we can't afford this because it's expanding. Even Manchin has sat there and said, well, let's introduce a measure where it only limits those to low incomes, which again, a lot of Democrats are against because they go against their constituents. Keep in mind the Democrats ran on a policy of, first and foremost, getting Trump out of office. Second of all, passing things that would be for the American people and not for corporations, millionaires, and billionaires. The problem with the Democrats, as I've said before, guys, they stand together during election. Oh, election? Oh, we are hand in hand, kumbaya. Oh, we are a united front against the Republicans, who are hypocritical. They champion small business, but yet they turn around and give to corporations. Democrats will always be unified when it comes to elections. When it comes to Congress, however, especially in this sense, Democrats have, again, a slim majority. They have a slim majority in the House, they have an even slim majority in the Senate, and yes, Biden, for all intents and purposes, will still be the president for the next couple of years. That being said, midterms is what the Republicans are eyeing on, because they know if they can knock out one of 2 areas, they're going to make life very problematic for Joe Biden. Trust me, they are looking forward to it. That being said, Republicans are not lifting a finger to do anything about Democratic things, because again, it goes against their constituents, whoever pays them the most. So, why am I saying this? Because Democrats, although they have the smartest ideas, they speak progressive. Democrats speak progressive during election times, but they actually go moderate or almost damn near Republican when it comes to Congress. Keep in mind, out of the 50 Democrats, out of the 50 Democratic senators, 2 of them, mind you, are the ones holding up the line. Biden has mentioned them both by name. Pelosi has mentioned them both. AOC, Ilhan Umar have all mentioned them. And again, I just find it interesting that I used to sit there and say that Manchin is the Republicans' gift, is the gift to the Republicans right now. He is the roadblock that Republicans always wanted, but didn't want to sit there and say it. Sinema is joining him because, again, Sinema is being rollballed by special interests. Joe Manchin is in coal country. And right now, for a lot of people in coal, I hate to say this, coal is a dying business. Much like fracking, it is a dying business. And that basically, those in the coal companies are funding Joe Manchin's campaign. Hence why Joe Manchin not only opposes the $3.5 trillion spending bill, he is opposing any new green deals that cuts down in emissions. Because let's be honest, if we do pass that, guess what that means? Very little, drilling will be reduced, coal mine will be reduced, fracking will be reduced, to basically get the world back on track. Because all scientists are telling us if we do not act now, then climate change may eventually be irreversible. And I don't know about you, but I like to have a plan around for the next generation. That's just me. But what does that have to do with everything? Basically, Democrats, whenever it comes down to it, this has been the Democrats' Achilles heel. They have never been unified, except for one or two. It always comes down to one or two. It's always one or two people. When this happens, Democrats do this. Well, we need to really look at things, but hold at the boat. Say what you want about Republicans. I can't stand Republicans because I ask myself, when you really look at the Republican Party as it stands right now, how can anyone, minority-wise or woman-wise, be with a bunch of guys who literally resemble grumpy old white men? Yet, say what you want about Republicans. The one thing I've always noticed about Republicans, they have a kind of pack mentality, if you will. Everybody toes the party line. If you don't toe the party line, you get excommunicated. Don't believe me? There are plenty of people who were once Republicans, the Republican parties, decided to go against the grain, and what happened? Removed, resigned, or asked to leave. That's being plain. That's just being honest with you. Liz Cheney is a prime example. Liz Cheney used to be one of the top Republicans until she voted to impeach Trump, and the next time that came around, Trump helped the Republican caucus boot out Liz Cheney from Republican leadership and put in somebody who would favor Donald Trump and pretty much kiss the golden calf's ass to remain in office. You go against the pack, you get excommunicated. But Republicans seem to toe the party line when they need to. The one lesson I wish Democrats would honestly get behind. I really, truly wish they get behind that. Because above all else, that's always been their problem. They speak unity, but again, whenever it comes to progressive things, keep in mind, a lot of people who voted for Biden were progressive voters. We're expecting a lot more things than what they're getting out of a centrist president. Again, Democrats, your deadline's coming up, and even more so, the midterms are coming up. And this is the kind of thing that Republicans like, because they can sit there and say that these people had this power and nothing got done, and yet expect people to have amnesia when the Republicans had total control for 4 years, and look what they did. But they don't want to talk about that. But I'm just saying. Moving right along, guys. Again, I have been saying this, and I know I have daily arguments on Facebook about this all the time, about workers. Because a lot of people like to say that nobody likes to work. When really I said everybody wants to work. We just want to be treated and paid equally. Nobody wants to work for poverty wages anymore, which is how these corporations have been getting over on American workers. They have been paying poverty wages while cooping in billions in profits, and they expect that same system to work. And I've always said this, and other people know I've said this as well. If everybody got together and started quitting, you would see how much power these workers have and how little these corporations have. Even to the point where corporations are trying to offer everything under the sun except pay people more. And you see it in the minimum wage, which is still sitting at $7.29, and you think by now we should be kicking that thing up to $20 an hour. That being said, the strike is no different as it hits two areas. The first area we're going to talk about is good old John Deere. For the simple fact of the matter is, those workers are now on strike.
And to Hollywood, from coal miners to healthcare workers to film crews. We begin tonight with the increasing number of American workers prepared to walk off the job. 10,000 John Deere workers officially went on strike today. They are part of the growing number nationwide of employees demanding better working conditions and wages, especially with inflation on the rise. The John Deere strike, just the latest by an emboldened labor movement and workers who want a greater share of record pandemic profits in some industries. On Monday, 24,000 Kaiser Permanente workers in California authorized a strike. And we've been tracking that coal mine strike in Alabama for a while now. Workers walked off the job 7 months ago. So what comes next? And can workers all across the country get what they're looking for? Our Terry Moran leads us off tonight.
In the wee hours of Thursday morning, 10,000 workers at John Deere hit the picket lines in Iowa, Illinois, and Kansas, on strike for the first time in 35 years at Deere. They're demanding better pay, secure pensions, a fair share of a hugely profitable American company.
The company wants to eliminate pensions altogether for new people, and we refuse to sell people down the road like that.
Sounds like it's about sticking together.
Yes, it's about sticking together now and for the people that come after us.
And about better pay.
Yes, absolutely. The company, their profits have just been through the roof.
Workers argue that even as John Deere's profits grew by 61% in recent years and their CEO's salary grew by 160% during the pandemic, their pay has actually been cut.
We need to let them know that they can't continue to take our money and take our money and take our money.
It's day one of this fight, but the women and men here on the picket line, the people who build those iconic green John Deere farm vehicles, they're bracing for a long strike. American workers want more, and they are willing to strike to get it. In Brookwood, Alabama, striking coal miners rally every Wednesday.
Every union in this country owes something to coal miners.
Bolstered by their motto, one day longer.
So I stand by you, one day longer, one day stronger.
But those days have turned into months, 7 months now.
We knew it was going to be a struggle and a fight.
Braxton Wright is one of the roughly 1,000 workers who left the coal mines and joined the picket lines after failing to reach a deal with mine owner Warrior Met Coal. Larry Spencer is the union vice president involved in the negotiations.
Did you think that here in October and heading into the fall, you'd still be here, or did you think that it was going to get resolved?
I did think we would get something settled before now, and it just seems to be getting worse. I would like to say this part. They might think they're going to break these people's spirit, but they're not.
Braxton's wife, Hayden, helps run a supply pantry for strike families. And they're already stocking up on Christmas presents. This is the first coal miner strike the town has seen in 4 decades. The miners in Brookwood are demanding an increase in wages and benefits that had been cut back in 2016 when Warrior Met Coal's mine was struggling. Now times are good.
We're not even asking for more. We're asking for close to what we lost 5 years ago.
And Braxton, like so many American workers, feels the significance of this moment.
I believe the labor movement in the United States is growing, but I think a lot of them are watching us because they know if we lose this fight, they're next.
Nationwide, more and more workers are flexing their collective muscles, seeking to rebalance the old equation between bosses and workers. Decades of declining wages for the workers and skyrocketing executive pay.
It's kind of the David and Goliath fight right now.
Last week, 1,400 Kellogg cereal workers launched strikes in Tennessee, Nebraska, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
This is a simple matter of fact that the rich want to get richer. And to do that, they take away from the small guys.
In California and Oregon, 24,000 nurses and other healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente voted to authorize a strike over pay and working conditions. And soon, Hollywood may see a walkout. Roughly 60,000 film and TV workers are getting their picket signs ready, set to go on strike on Monday. If it happens, it would be the first nationwide strike in that powerful union's history and could bring Hollywood to a halt.
We have some members in our crafts that are so underpaid, that they can't possibly survive in the cities where they provide services.
The workers at John Deere voted overwhelmingly to reject a contract that their own union, the United Auto Workers, had negotiated with management.
There was a pretty blatant attack on our benefits. They want us to pay more for our benefits.
Strikes, which had almost disappeared in America, are back.
We're looking at levels of strike activity that are comparable to the mid-'80s, which no one says is, the heyday of, working class fighting. But on the other hand, it's been decades since we've seen this much activity.
Jonah Furman is a staff writer for Labor Notes. He's been covering every twist and turn of the John Deere negotiations. The deal that workers rejected at John Deere offered a 5% raise in the first year of the contract, not what workers expected from a company that estimates it will make $5.9 billion in profits in 2021.
This is really not a case of the company being squeezed and the workers wanting to, get a bigger piece of the pie. There really is a bigger pie here.
But going out on strike is such a hard decision to make and a risky one.
Unions do not take strikes lightly. It really is a last resort.
Heidi Shearholtz, the chief economist at the Department of Labor during the Obama administration, says companies have long had the upper hand. And over the years, they've successfully lobbied to change the laws in Washington to weaken American unions.
It's scary to walk off the line. One of the things is an employer has right now, under current labor law, the right to hire permanent replacements. And so once the strike is over, if an employer has hired a permanent replacement, what the person who went on strike has to sort of go to the back of the line.
Companies are pushing back publicly against all this strike activity. A Kellogg spokesperson saying their proposals have been, quote, grossly misrepresented by the union.
Being away from work puts our people and their families in a difficult position and can create financial hardships.
And John Deere releasing a statement to ABC News reading in part, John Deere is committed to a favorable outcome for everyone involved and is committed to reach an agreement with the UAW that would put every employee in a better economic position and continue to make them the highest paid employees in the agriculture and construction industries. Our immediate concern is meeting the needs of our customers. And in a statement to ABC News, Warrior Met Coal wrote in part, we remain steadfast in our belief that the 8 proposals given to the union are fair and equitable. Warrior Met Coal provides some of the highest paying jobs in Alabama. But on the growing number of picket lines in Brookwood, in Moline, and across America, it's about more than money. It's about respect.
Now to Terry Moran, who's outside John Deere headquarters in Illinois. Terry, we can see some of those on strike right behind you there. What have been some of the emotions there on the ground? You've spoken to many of them.
Stephanie, the emotions here on these picket lines, it's so intense. After years of frustration, it feels like a dam is bursting here and around the country. It's a hard decision to go on strike. It's hard for the workers. They know that they are putting their families in a tough position. But right now it feels like they're fed up not only with pay and pensions issues, but really with the whole system. The pie's getting bigger and bigger for corporate executives and bosses and investors. And what workers here and around the country are saying is that it should get bigger for workers, too.
And Terry, bigger picture, even workers who are not on strike, many still want to see change, right?
That's right. I think what happens and has happened in the past is once strikes get going, and we're seeing strike activity like we haven't seen since the 1980s, it gets contagious. Workers don't feel as isolated. They get a little bit bolder in negotiations and perhaps take that very big, very difficult decision to go out on strike. That's certainly what we're seeing right now around the country, with more coming down the road.
And they're not giving up just yet. Terry Moran for us in Illinois. Thank you.
Now think about this for a second, guys. Simply put, nobody wants to go on strike. I mean, strike is like the last thing you want to do in any situation. But I have been saying this, unions matter. Corporations, the one thing they hate worse, the thing that they hate more than anything is the word union. I keep telling a story about Michael Dell because, again, Michael Dell, because I used to work for Dell so long ago, but it was told to us when we worked for Dell and we talked about union, the manager, supervisors, they said, oh, no, don't say union. And we asked them why. And they would sit there and say, If Michael Dell ever found out that one of his areas ever started a union, then he would close down that location and move the job somewhere else. Ask yourself a question. Why are corporations so scared of unions? I mean, without unions, we wouldn't have 40-hour work weeks. We wouldn't have paid time off. We wouldn't actually have maternity and paternity leave. We wouldn't have sick days. And this is why? Because of unions. So that's why I always never knock unions. I personally believe wherever you work, there should be a union because, again, these corporations will run roughshod over people, especially as you can see that John Deere, the coal workers, Kellogg, and I knew about Kellogg. Kellogg was actually earlier this week, but all these workers were on strike. Although there was a separate story where in John Deere where they did bring on non-union workers, and what wound up happening was that, for the simple fact of the matter is, there was accidents. In that location's 27 years, they have never reported an accident. In one day with non-union replacement workers, accident. And I'm not saying coincidence. I am just saying, for the simple fact of the matter is, that's how corporations usually approach unions when they go on strike. They'll always try to, they'll keep that. As long as they keep that profit going, those people can sit there and protest all they want to. But this should be a bigger awakening as far as what's going on. Because keep in mind, I actually reported midweek that there are literally over 10.3 million jobs available. 10.3 million jobs available. And people are still quitting. The unemployment rate is actually going back up. It was at 4 something, now it's back to 5.2, 5.3. So again, people are starting to realize, and I've said this before many times in this podcast, people are truly starting to realize that you're busting your tail for poverty wages while the CEO is raking in extreme profits. Not to mention the profits they're being saved because of Trump's tax plans, which for the life of me have yet to be repealed. Tax codes, I should say, tax adjustments. And I still wonder why in the world they are not being repealed yet. But the thing I'm also going to point out is that, yes, again, strikes matter because unions matter. And without a union, you're kind of up the creek without one. So you definitely require one. But we will follow these strikes, especially one in Hollywood. Hollywood cannot afford to strike right now. 60,000 workers? If 60,000 workers went on strike, your favorite Marvel, Disney movie, or every other movie that's being made in Tinseltown might take a little while longer to get made. Because again, as the journalist said, the pie is getting bigger for executives. But it's amazing, the joke we always sit there and say that everything goes up for your paycheck, it's not a joke anymore. People are sick and tired. People want to move. People don't want, the people that say, oh, it's like, and I have this argument with Facebook among friends every day, because there seems to be this notation in America that some jobs are seen as beneath them. And I've never understood that. Because in my mind, every job is needed because every job is valuable. So if you're doing a great job, you should get rewarded no matter what the job is. But if you're working a job, it needs to be enough to where you can actually thrive. Not just survive or get by, but to thrive. And I've had this argument all the time. So now I've heard this from people. So you're saying that a person that flips burgers should get paid $20 an hour? Yes, because times have changed. It's not first and foremost, it's not 1975 anymore. Quit says, oh, but it's a kid's job. Really? In my home state of Tennessee, the hospitality and service industry make up almost 40% of Tennessee's workforce. Almost 40. So the teenage kid that you expect to be working at McDonald's, Burger King, retail stores, gas stations, and all that stuff, they're adults. Quit putting this quit putting this in mind. Just like someone who works at Walmart or Costco or any other place. A job is a job no matter how you look at it. But you still should be, if you are working hard at that job, you should still get paid enough to thrive. And in this day and age, for the simple fact of the matter is, if we really did pay attention to the inflation rates and the way our productivity and the GDP in this America is going, we would still not be at $7.29 an hour for the minimum wage. We would almost damn near be $24, $25 an hour. Why? Because nobody in America can afford a single bedroom. When a single one-bedroom apartment is well between $1,200 to $1,500 on average across the U.S., $7.29 or $10, $11, $12, $13, $14 an hour, $15 an hour, it's not going to cut it anymore. Because it is amazing how far that the rich have strung out the poverty-stricken and then say it's normal capitalism. It's not. It's unregulated capitalism because the invisible hand doesn't exist. It is just pretty much Reaganomics on an extreme level, and people swear up and down it works. It doesn't. Argue with me if you want to, but go in history, and I challenge people this. I challenge people all the time. Go in history and find a time where when the rich got more influence than the middle and lower class, and it was a booming economy. I will bet money you can never find a time. But you know when America did thrive? When America did thrive, when the corporate tax was high, when incentives were given to the middle and lower class, when tax breaks were given, when economic programs were put in to stimulate the lower halves because the rich were already taken care of. That's when America thrived, folks. It didn't thrive when you stripped out the middle and the lower and you gave it all to the top. Just saying. Argument if you want to. So, with that being said, guys, I did want to move on to the next story, which again is one of those I cannot believe. Well, then again, it's Texas. I shouldn't be surprised because two things from Texas came out this week that I'm not surprised by. But this one is crazy because apparently in Texas, not only are they banning books because they deem them violating or find them offensive, now they have to give alternatives to history. I wish I could make this up.
Exclusive. The new report in our series on a Texas school district at the center of a firestorm over diversity and inclusion efforts. Now, secretly recorded comments from a top administrator about books on the Holocaust are sparking new outrage. Antonia Hilton takes us back to Southlake.
Wes Frierson, a parent of two daughters in Southlake, is uncertain about his kids' education.
With some of the local politics right now, I'm not sure that teachers feel supported.
The district already in the spotlight after parents clashed over its diversity plan, now facing new pushback over which books are allowed in their libraries, with some teachers placing caution tape over bookshelves, calling the move censorship. It all started when a fourth grade teacher was reprimanded after a parent complained about her having a book about anti-racism.
I couldn't believe it. She's the kind of teacher that we would hope the district would be trying to attract.
The district sent educators new guidance to vet all books, instructing them to not allow singular perspectives that could be considered offensive. This coming after Texas passed a law banning the teaching of concepts that could make individuals feel guilt or anguish due to their race. NBC News obtained exclusive, secretly recorded audio of a school training.
We are in the middle of a political mess.
The director of curriculum, Gina Petty, offers an example for teachers. Balance books about the Holocaust with an opposing view.
Make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has other.
How do you oppose the Holocaust? Gina Petty did not respond to messages requesting comment. I met with two concerned teachers in Southlake. We obscured their identities because they feared speaking out could cost them their jobs.
I was in such shock when I heard these words. We felt this was necessary because we felt like no one was going to listen until a teacher spoke up.
And it's not just in Southlake. Across the country, educators are facing new policies restricting how they can educate students about race, from Tennessee to Pennsylvania. Southlake School District told NBC News they were helping teachers comply with Texas law, and the district has not and will not mandate books be removed.
The district says that they have not told teachers to ban books, to completely shut down libraries. What are you seeing?
That's a lie. It is a flat-out lie. How could you even make that statement?
What do you think is at stake here?
In books, children see what the world can be, and to have that taken away because we're afraid of a few parents getting upset about a word or two or an idea that they've imagined is in a book is unthinkable.
Wes Frierson says his daughters see what's happening.
But unfortunately, for kids of the age of mine, I think as they become aware of the world, I think they just see the world as very highly politicized.
But parents hope that politics find a way out of public schools. Antonia Hilton, NBC.
Crazy, isn't it? Like, it's like, again, why would two teachers risk it all and say, the school said, well, they're not going to remove any books. But you're literally found recording where it's like, well, if you're going to do books about the Holocaust, then you have to have other books that have opposing views. Why in my mind did I hear that stupid, annoying advisor to Trump, Kelly, and I forgot her name already, but thank God we don't see her anymore. But I just remember the day where she called it alternative facts. No, that's an alternative fact. Opposing views, alternative. We've heard this before. And even more so, we should be very, very, very alarmed. And I don't blame the teachers. First of all, it's like, wait a minute, an opposing view to the Holocaust? Aside from slavery, that's one of the absolute worst human atrocities in history. And I say next to slavery just because both of those were genocide. Again, it's like you don't sit there and say, okay, well, we're going to have a book on the history of slavery and how it happened, but next to it, you're going to have an opposing view of, was it really slavery? It just sounds cringy. It's beyond cringy. It is honestly effing scary, folks. I'm like, and this is going on in Texas of all places, which again, because keep in mind, the same Texas that wanted to put an abortion for women, that's for women who are, if you are 6 weeks in, you can't get an abortion. The same Texas that turned around and banned critical race theory, even though critical race theory isn't taught in schools, it's taught in law school. The same Texas, again, with dear old Greg Abbott, along with this is the same Texas now, which again, I call them right now the leading contender in the Hold My Beer contest. Not along with this, but along with this, they passed the bill limiting public school student athletes to teams that match their birth gender. So, you guys do remember a while back, I did cover a story of all the crazy Texas laws they were trying to pass. Well, one of them passed actually tonight, requiring transgender public school athletes to compete on teams that match their birth gender, not the gender they identify with. Was passed, and of course will head to Governor Greg Abbott's desk if the House approves an amendment to the legislature's terminology. Y'all, this is a knock on transgender athletes. It is. And I have been saying this, that we have to look at it, because as we accept different cultures, ideals, individualities, things of that nature, that means we are accepting transgenders, the binary, non-binary, by whatever pronouns that they choose to go by. Once we open that door, we've accepted it all. That being said, it's like, well, transgenders can play together. Well, this can only go one of two ways. Because the NCAA and the NBA and the WNBA have already accepted this. So, I point out and I say this is going to wind up in there's three possible scenarios what's going to happen in the future when it comes to trans athletes. One, let's go with the Texas idea, that transgender athletes have to play on the gender that they were assigned to at birth, not the one they identify. Okay? What's going to wind up happening is those transgender athletes, if they're talented or, want to play somewhere else, they will. This could lead to mass shifts in school. And again, that goes right into college recruiting. Because once high school comes around, those college recruits come around. And in most sports, like the South, sports is a religion. College recruiters are only going to go for the best. And for example, the argument that they made about these transgender athletes is that we have to protect the women. I thought to myself, that's very sexist. If you really think about it, transgender athlete bills are put in to protect women's sports. Well, what about the men? You don't think a woman who identifies herself as a man can actually outdo an actual man? That's sexist. And at the same time, there's plenty of ball players that can actually do that. But I say that's bound to change because the NCAA and the professional sports leagues see it differently. Keep in mind, when it comes to college sports is the plethora of moneymakers. So they're going to get the best students, the best student athletes that they can, because they want to keep the boosters happy. They want to win championships and bowl games and keep that money flowing into their colleges, which is why you still pay tuition hikes every year. But I digress. But anyway, say for instance that you do have transgender athletes on teams, and those recruiters go after them and yet give them the scholarship. Are you going to be mad at the fact that the school, because again, they decided to impose transgender athletes law? Or are you going to be mad at the recruiter because he looked over your, child for someone else they deemed was worthy, who's transgender? Who are you going to blame? The school or the recruiter? Because at the end of the day, the recruiter's going to do its job. The school, unfortunately, is going to enforce a rule that makes no sense. Now, I did say 3 scenarios. Now, I said 1 would be that. 2, they would actually have to do it, and they would basically create a transgender league to basically appease everybody. Everybody can play in the leagues they want to play in, and of course, going back to the NCAA thing, recruiters are going to come to both leagues, and if they decide to offer more to the transgender athletes than they would to the regular athletes, the only people you're hurting, the only people that's going to be hurting is the school. And finally, number 3. Now, I say with the 3rd scenario simply this, that this never happens. This rule never gets happen, and then we have to accept that we are in a progressive state. We have to. Because again, I've never understood why so many people fight against actual progression. We are moving forward, aren't we? That we just have to accept new things as they come along. But yet, in Texas, they're telling you that, oh yeah, you don't have to wear a mask, but you gotta get an abortion. But you can't get an abortion, but play with your born by. Texas in a nutshell. But then again, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida are not that far off. That being said, guys, we're going to move to our feel-good segment. Like we usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes just makes you lose faith in humanity, but hey, it's the weekend. We want to make sure to leave you guys on a good, positive note and some good vibes. And we're going to do so with this story because, again, if you're a guy like me, you're trying to get back into the fitness side, I love to see what fitness can do for people and a person who's willing to teach them the way. Check it out.
Changing the lives of countless women. They walk in a bit uncertain about themselves and they walk out confident and fit. Anthony Antoine introduces us to Body by Maria in today's Acts of Kindness.
Ready, set, go!
In this gym,
1,
the body you want
2, keep your head up,
is on the other side of hard work.
3.
It's a philosophy Maria Jones,
right here with our weight,
lives by.
I was overweight and depressed, so I just wanted to better myself.
She started working out and the change was almost instant.
Women were noticing that I was much more happier at work, and I was losing weight, and so I said, hey, come join the team, come work out with me, come walk with me.
That commitment to her health blossomed into a new career as a personal trainer and business owner.
2, 3, 4.
Going from 215 pounds to 130.
We know here we can be ourselves and we don't get judged. We work out, we make friends, we kind of inspire each other.
Carmen Candelario is on her own fitness journey.
I came in at 181 pounds. I couldn't even jog or walk fast. I am now running 4 miles.
Woo! How you feel?
Candelario says she contemplated getting plastic surgery, but Maria showed her that a healthier life is possible.
Everyone is getting surgery. Women are starting to look a different way. And when you get to a certain age, you start thinking about, should I do the same thing? But here at Body by Maria, we know that we can work out and we can lose the weight and get ourselves the way we want to.
It's so many women that want to alter their body. All they need to do is take one step at a time.
Carmen's first steps has her on the path to success, and she wanted to tell Maria thank you by nominating her for the NBC 12 Acts of Kindness.
This is, I nominated you.
Oh my God!
Acts of Kindness, changing our lives.
Oh my God! Carmen! Oh my God, thank you!
Because you're always changing our lives, but $50 gift certificate from Mexico restaurant.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna eat some beans, all right.
This space is more than just a gym. It's a space for these women to come together and shed their insecurities along with the weight.
We don't let any one of us fall. Like if somebody's running behind, we'll grab them and be like, come on, we can do this together.
On your side, Anthony Antoine.
Looking good, ladies!
NBC 12.
And again, it's always cool to actually see someone motivate you and keep you motivated. Because trust me, this person who's been working out for almost 8 years now, it's good to be motivated. Because like I said, I'm trying to build myself up, and like I said, I do a couple push-ups. But again, when it comes to kindness, that's all it takes. One simple act of kindness can change a person's life. If you can do that and change a person's life, whether it's a minute, a day, an hour, or a lifetime, go ahead and do so. The world could use more of that. With that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this recording is up and loaded, because it is recorded, but I still want to know your opinion on everything that we talked about. Before I do get out of here, I do some shameless plugging. I do want to talk about my buddy, Big VZA Dot, which you can find him at Adamon Westpoon on Facebook, Big VZA Dot on socials, as he has his own podcast, Smoking Trailer Sundays, every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m., and also the REF podcast, like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by World Star, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. as well. Vaughn also has a video game channel called Making Plays, which you can definitely see on Facebook, so definitely check him out. The Vaughn Witherspoon on Facebook, or Big VZA Dot on all socials. As for me, guys, the link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for my YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Off Limits podcast. My IG handle, BlackFox447. Go ahead and follow me there on Instagram, as I do post movie reviews, video game reviews, some gym stuff, and sometimes inspirational stuff when the world hits me. But like and follow anyway. And also, guys, with that being said, none of this is possible without you. So if you do like it, let me know. If you don't like it, let me know. Still want to know you guys' opinion on everything that we talked about tonight. Or I should say today. Like I said, this is recorded, so this is technically early Saturday morning. So still want to know you guys' opinions on everything that we talked about. That being said, before we get to the end of this, guys, about immunizations, please get the vaccine. Please get your booster shots if you haven't already scheduled them. Like I said before, the vaccines work. They do curb it. So if you do want to, I've seen people, and it doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. Let me go and stress that very heavily. But if you have the vaccine and you do have a bout with COVID, you are more entitled to survive it than a person who doesn't. And last time I checked, anybody who wasn't vaccinated that still had a bout with COVID has always changed their tune after it's happened. And I'm not trying to put doom and gloom on you guys. I am simply trying to sit there and say, protecting yourself protects others. So aside from getting vaccinated, please wear a mask when you're going out and about. The more you take care of yourself, the more you protect others. That's how we get back to being normal. So the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We're not about changing minds, persuading people, or simply trying to force you to our way of thinking. We are simply doing what the news stations of old do. Try to give you all the information and allow you to make up your own mind for yourself. We do a lot better as a society where we're informed. We actually move forward. We're progressive. We try to right the wrongs of our history by doing the things that should have been done a long time ago, like electing our first Madam Vice President who was black. Still home for Michelle Obama and her husband in 2024. We need you, Michelle, more than ever. Aside from that, guys, this has been the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. Do thank you all for watching. If you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinions on everything we talked about tonight. Aside from that, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will get through this. Peace.